Have you ever faced having to reorder the tabs or sheets in a spreadsheet and realized the only way you know how to do this is by manually dragging them around? And this is going to take you a while. Have you ever wished you had a way to just click a button and have this happen automatically? Just like that. So in today's video, I'm going to show you 5 different ways to do this, from a script menu button to a button in the sheet to using it in the script menu. And the last 2 ways are a timed trigger, so you can set up a schedule that'll automatically do this. And lastly, to set it up that it will do it every time you open the Google Sheet. All right, so let's go ahead and jump right in. Let's open up a new script by going to Extensions and App Script. And while it's opening, I want to ask you guys, do you call these tabs or sheets? I know officially in Google, they're called sheets, but I call them tabs, and I'll let you know at the end of this video why. But in the meantime, let me know what you guys think. And then let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead and name this. We'll call this reorder tabs. And then basically what we're going to do is one function, but we're going to show you 5 different ways to use it or to deploy it. So I'll call this reorder tabs as well, if I can get it sorted correctly here. All right. So what we're going to do, first of all, is get the tabs or the sheets from our Google Sheet. So first of all, we need to reference our Google Sheet. So let's do let ss. We're declaring a variable here, and we'll use a spreadsheet app method, and then we'll get our active spreadsheet. And then we're going to create an array to store our tabs or sheet names in. And so we're just going to create a blank one with our brackets there. And then we're going to get our sheets using this method, get sheets. And then what I'm going to do to fill it in here, so basically I want to get all the tab names into this array, so that way I can sort it and then move those tabs around. And so what I'm going to do in here is just a method called for each. This allows me to manipulate it. And so what it's saying, for each sheet or tab in this spreadsheet, we want to do the following actions. And so we're going to use X as a placeholder. So X is going to represent each item or each sheet. And then for each item, I want to add it to this. So the way you add to an array is sheet names dot push. And then this X is going to be the sheet as a object, I guess you would call it. And it's going to get that sheet as an object. So we actually want to get the name from that. We don't want the object, that's not going to be usable. We want to get the name, so the tab name. Because there's other stuff you can do with it, but in this case, all we need is the name. So once we have the names all populated, so for each sheet in spreadsheet, we're going to add it to this array. And so what it's going to look like would be tab 1, tab 2, etc. is what we're going to get in the end. So once this is done and as that's populated, now we need to sort it. So the way we're going to sort this may be a little confusing, so we're not going to get too crazy into the explanation here, but you can get this script and sheet in a link in the description below. So what I'm going to do here is, this is a way to compare. So once I have those all filled in here, on that I can do this sort method, and then this A, B are used within that to basically, as it sorts through it, it's going to compare A and B to each other. So what we do in this is, again, our arrow there. And so for each A and B, what we want to do is compare A to B. So I'm going to use this method called locale compare. And the reason why, what you may see oftentimes is something like this, A minus B. And that can work, except for we want to make this more robust. So that way you can use it even if you're doing numbers. And we're going to show you that we can actually add numbers in this and order the numbers as well. And so that's going to be helpful for you guys. So let's go ahead and we're going to, this is English basically is what we're doing here. And then in our English, we're going to add this object here, and we're going to say numeric equals to true. So what this is going to do is for each A and B, so each time it iterates through, it's going to compare A and B, and then on the result, it's going to sort them. And so if it's determining A is less than B, then I'll sort it up in the array. If it's greater than, it'll sort it down. So I'm not going to get any deeper in that logic, but you guys can use that in your own project just like that. All right, so now in our sheet names array, we should have all the tab names, and they should be sorted now. So now what we need to do is actually rearrange them. And so we need a different method to do that. And so I'm just going to use a simple for loop here. And so this I is known as the iterator. And then we're just going to start at 0 because arrays, the first item is known as 0. So item 0, for example, this would be sheet names 0. And if we did this, we would get this item 0. So that's just how that works. So that's why we're starting this one at 0. And then this is going to be the length or how many items are in this array. And then finally, we want to add 1. And so this plus plus means add 1 to, in this case, I. And so what this is going to do is this for loop is going to start with I as 0. And then as long as I is less than the number of items in our sheet names, then it's going to continue through adding 1 until we reach the end. So what this effectively does is the first time it goes through, I is going to be 0, then I is going to be 1, then I is going to be 2, and so forth. So this allows us to iterate through our array. So now what we can do is in our spreadsheet, so our spreadsheet's right here, SS, we can do set active sheet, and then we're going to get sheet by name. And remember, we pushed the sheet names to here. So now we can access sheet name, and instead of 0 to get that first item, we're going to use that placeholder I because that's going to iterate each time. And so I will be 0, then it'll be 1, and so forth. And so that allows us to, for each item in sheet names, to iterate through and decide what we want to do. So this is going to set it as our active sheet. And then we're going to move the active sheet to I plus 1. So what this does is actually moves the tabs around. So the reason why this is actually moving them is, first of all, this ss.get sheets is going to get them in order that they're in here. So campfire would be first, then kangaroo, then jackrabbit, and so forth. And so we have those names in here, but then we sort them. So now they're in order. And so as we go through that in order, we're setting them in sequential order to the active sheet. And so then what this ends up doing in the end is whatever order they are in here, it's going to move these in that same order. All right, so that's enough explanation for some of you guys. Hopefully you've been following along. For some of you guys, that may be a little over your head. But again, you can find a link to this project, download this whole thing with the script, and kind of play around with that in that way. So believe it or not, we are done. That's all it takes. So I'm going to add one more thing before we authorize the script, and this just makes the authorized script a little more friendly to use. And it's called this only current doc. And so what this does is it restricts the permissions that Google will ask from us to run this. So let's go ahead and run this from here and review permissions and then choose our Google account. And this is the simplified version. So it doesn't have the scary, hey, this is not reviewed by Google. So this is a simple one here. So click allow. And then this is going to go ahead and run. So boom, there we go. We got all these sorted in order. So I'm going to go ahead and mess this up a little bit again because I want to show you some other ways to do this. But take a moment to celebrate if you guys are struggling and have been wondering how to do this. You've already solved it with a few lines of code. If we look without this part, I think we have 11 lines of code, including these two closing brackets. Oh, and a space. So there we go. 10 lines of code, including 2 brackets. That's pretty efficient there. All right, so let's go ahead and save this again. So this is all good to go. We already tested it and saw that it reordered all our tab names. So before I show you the other 4 methods, let's go ahead and see what happens if we add some numbers at the beginning. And if you remember, I told you I used this, I put numeric, take off the B apparently when you do this. So that was incorrect, but it still did it correctly. So amazing. So let's go ahead and add the numbers at the beginning of a couple of these, but I'm not going to do it in the alphanumeric order or alphabetic order, if I can say this correctly. But let's say we want to put grass first. So what I can do in this case is a number, and I don't need the period. I could put just a number, for example, or the number period. But what this is going to allow you to do, so as you use this in your own projects, keep this in mind that it'll sort alphabetically, but you can force a certain order by using numbers in front of them. So actually what I'm going to do here, I'm going to do 9, 10, 11. And the reason why is because often when you go from, if you're sorting just text, the 10 would actually show up before the 9 because 1 is less than 9. But this is going to show you that it sorts no matter what. So some of you guys may have already tried the sorting and you're trying to run into numbers, but then when you had, as soon as you got to 10, that it wasn't sorting correctly. So we're going to show you that this works no matter what. So let's go ahead and do this again from here and see what happens. So now 9, 10, 11, and then the rest in, let's see, alphabetic order. If I can say that correctly, it's confusing, alphanumeric, numeric, alphabetic, and I might be saying that wrong too, but we will continue because this is working. So I've now demonstrated it works no matter whether you add numbers or not, and this is the order that I'll do, the numbers first and then the rest in alphabetical, there we go, alphabetical order. So let's just look now at the other ways that we can do this. So I showed a button in the original, so let me go ahead and show you how to add a button here. We'll go to insert, and we got to make a drawing. So this is a little hokey, but I'll show you how to make a decent looking button here. I like this rounded one. Maybe you like the square. I'm going to go with the rounded one for today. And we're just going to draw a shape here, maybe something like that. And then let's set some options. I don't like the borders on this, so I'm going to set transparent there. And then they just added these gradients not too long ago, so it makes it look a little cooler, a little more professional. And let's just add some text here, and we'll call this order tabs. And then let's make this a little smaller. They're getting pretty crazy there in the size there. And then I just want to center this on that button just like that. So that looks pretty good. You can play around with this. You can use different fonts or whatever you want to if you want to get crazy with this. Got to make sure you select the text there. There we go. If you just put it in here and then change it, won't do anything. You got to actually, like I did, Control A to just select all the text, or you can just select it like that and then you can change the settings there. So let me just do it to that font there. Let's go ahead and save and close. Not taking more time there. So the one thing you need to do with a button before it works is you have to assign to the script. So what we need is this name of the script. So whatever you end up calling it, I'm just going to go ahead and copy this. And then on these 3 dots here, I'm going to do assign script and put in there. So you don't have to copy and paste. You can type it in, but I'm just do that to make sure it runs okay. So let's go ahead and just upset this a little bit, make sure we can actually tell that it worked. And then order tabs. And then there we go. And it resorted them. So that worked great. So I also showed you how to do a menu item. And so we will have to add a little bit more scripting for this, but it's not too bad. So I'm going to show you real quick. What we do here is, so we add a new function called onOpen. And so this is a proprietary function that will run every time the Google Sheet is opened. So what we're going to do is create a menu, and this is done through a UI method. So I'm just going to call this UI, but then we're going to get the spreadsheet app and then use this get UI method. So this is getting the UI functions for the Google Sheet. And so in there, you can see we have different things here like dialogues and stuff, but we're going to use the menu. And so first of all, we need to name the menu. So we'll just call it script menu. You can call this whatever you like. And then after that, we need to add an item. And so for each script that you want to run, you'll want to add its own item. And we'll call this reorder tabs. And there's two things that go in this add item thing. If you notice, I'm using dots. And so the dot is how you append a method to something. So we created a menu, and now we're adding an item. And then in this add item, we need the caption or the title, and then the function name. And so here, just like the macro, we'll put that reorder tabs, just like that. And then finally, so it actually shows up, we need to make sure we do this add to UI. Otherwise, we're going to create this menu, but it's not going to actually show up because we have not added it to the UI. So with that, let's go ahead and save this, make sure your project is saved. And then for this to show up, we either have to reload this Google Sheet, or if we want to manually do it, we can do it from here and run this on open function, and voila, there is our script menu. So let me jumble this up again. This is like undoing the work. It makes you wonder what we're doing here. Okay, so the script menu is going to do the same thing. Click reorder tabs, and then it's going to go through and reorder them again. So one nice thing about the script is not complaining as much work as I throw at it. It does it without a single complaint. All right, so we've gone through 3 methods already. We've shown you how to do it from the script menu on the reorder tabs. We showed you how to add a button, how to do a script menu. So we only got 2 left. So I'm going to show you the timed trigger first, and then we're going to finish up with how to do it in the on open, because I do have a caveat in that. And then I'm going to finish this video by telling you why I call these tabs, not sheets. And then we will be done. So let's go ahead and do the triggers real quick. So over here on the left-hand side, you see this clock icon. And if you hover over it, you can see it says triggers. Click on that. And then what we're going to do is create a new trigger. So there's a couple different ways. There's create a new trigger here, or this big plus button over here. So we'll just use that one for now. And then we want to make sure we select the correct function. So our reorder tabs, or whatever you called it. And then here's the tricky part. Sometimes people get confused. The event source, they're like, well, what do you mean? So what we want to make sure here is if we want it on a timed basis, to change it to time driven. And then we see our different options. So you can do hourly if you want this done every hour, which unless you're making new tabs or something like that, or people are rearranging them on you, I wouldn't probably do that. But what I would probably recommend would be probably the most useful is something like resetting it in the middle of the night. Or maybe you want to do it weekly. If you add some new tabs, you could do it like that. So you could set it like, say, 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. If you're not working at that time, maybe that'd be a good time of day or time of night to do that. And so once you've selected the schedule you want to do it, so you can do minutes, hours, day, week, or month. And then the time of day, if applicable, then all we got to do is click save. And once we've clicked save, you'll see it show up here. And so we can go back to our script, and you don't see it here, but if you go back to that triggers button and see this interface, you'll see here this time-based trigger. If you need to edit it, you can click here and you can change that. Or if you need to delete it, click on these 3 dots and hit delete trigger. And so you can delete it just like that. So I'm not going to demo this at the moment, but that would have run every day between 1 and 2 a.m. So the last one is how to do this inside the on open. So if you want this to run every time you open the spreadsheet, and I will demo this. Let me go ahead and screw this up again. Make sure we don't get any complaints. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this button just for the moment. And then what I'm going to do here, and so I need to explain something really quick, and it's that on open will run for everyone that opens the spreadsheet. So the only issue with this is, if you remember, we authorized the script. And so if you have not authorized the script and you open the Google Sheet, theoretically this isn't going to run because it hasn't been authorized by you, because Google restricts it on a user basis. So if you and, let's say, your cousin Joe and your sister Betty, all 3 use this sheet, and you built the script, you authorized it, and then you share it with Joe and Betty, and they open the script but they have not authorized it, this script won't run. But if everyone that has access to this authorizes the script, and so you could do this through, if you have this menu item, just tell them, hey, when you get in here, just run this script menu thing and run through authorize. If everyone that uses the sheet does that, then this will work. But I just wanted to explain that caveat because sometimes people get confused. They're like, hey, I authorize script, I put in the on open thing, but it's only working for me. And if so, that would be the reason why. It's because no one else authorized it. So what I'm going to do here, because we already created this other function, and you may want to use this outside of the on open, like on a different basis. So if you wanted the menu, you could keep this in here. If you didn't want the menu, you could just delete it out. I'm going to leave it in here for now. But all I'm going to do is add a reference to this function. So you just use this function name. And then in this context, we're going to add this parentheses. And what this is telling Google is you want to run this function. So let's go ahead and save this. And then because I authorize the script, this is going to work for me. So let's take a look, make sure. So we are out of order, as they say in the judicial system. But all we have to do is reload this. And then once the sheet loads up, it's already working, and it automatically sorted. All right, so I've shown you 5 different ways to deploy the script. As you can see, as we went through, we didn't really modify the base script. Once we built it, we're good to go. And I just showed you 5 different ways to use it. Now, to wind this up, I want to explain why I typically call these tabs and not sheets. And I use both. I work with a bunch of different people, and so some people, you say tab, and like, what the heck is a tab? But typically, I often call them tabs, and the reason why is because when you say sheet tab, sheet tab, sheet tab, and then sheet, spreadsheet, there's people that will say, hey, I'm working in this sheet, and then my question is, what do you mean, spreadsheet or the tab? And that's when I end up using it. And you can see I still go back and forth, like I called this one sheet 4, not tab 4 and stuff like that. So that's just the reason why I do that sometimes. So I don't know what you guys think, if you guys run into that, if that's confusing for you guys. But I just thought it was an interesting thing. Since we're on the topic of reordering tabs or / sheets, I'll just say that right now, tabs / sheets in Google Sheets, that sometimes causes confusion. So I thought maybe you guys drop that in the comments if that's something that's confusing for you guys. As always, let me know if this video is helpful for you. Make sure to check out our other videos for a lot more helpful tutorials on both Google Sheets and AppScript. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you again soon.